Welcome to California Unearthed. We are in Old Town, San Diego today. We're kind of here twofold. Main reason why is my friend Cheryl, her 3 times great grandmother, was born and raised in Old Town, San Diego, or around Old Town, San Diego. And we're going to kind of do a historical vlog on that, along with checking out Old Town San Diego today. We are in front of the El Campo Cemetery here in Old Town San Diego. Cemetery was built in 1849. About 417 bodies are buried in here. The unique thing about the cemetery, though, is San Diego Boulevard here was cut into the middle of the cemetery. So the cemetery used to be much bigger. It was made for trolley cars at first, but now, as you can tell, it is a very active street here in Old Town. But the interesting thing about that is, if we pan the camera down, you will see that somebody came through here with some ground penetrating radar and identified bodies in the street and on the sidewalk. And there's actually a plaque right over here to show you where those are buried at. And so let's take a look at those real quick. There's a plaque to show you where the bodies are in the street, and we'll show you what the markers look like in the sidewalk and in the street. So you see if we can find one here. This is San Diego Boulevard, and here's one of the ones that is in the street, and there's another one out in the middle over there. There was also bodies found in the businesses across the street. This cemetery was created in 1849. The last burial was in 1880. There once was a brick chapel here on the property, but unfortunately that burned to the ground in 1882, just 2 years after the last burial. And then in 1889 is when they cut a road through the cemetery for a horse-drawn trolley system. And in 1942, that road for the trolley was paved over and became San Diego Avenue. Now, one of the more colorful characters here in the cemetery is Antonio Guerra. He was a Native American chief who started an uprising against the San Diego people over taxes. The Native Americans were being taxed even though they were not considered citizens or could not vote. And so the uprising began, and he was eventually captured in 1852 and was sentenced to be executed. And that's exactly what happened. He is buried here in the cemetery, and part of his sentence was that he had to be executed by firing squad in front of a freshly dug grave. And so on January 17th, 1852, that is exactly what happened. He was executed by firing squad and fell into his grave. And people nowadays, when they come here, say that they have weird experiences next to his grave, along with a lot of other graves here in the cemetery. It is known to be haunted. So if you do come here, be prepared to possibly have a ghostly experience. This is an old photograph from the 1800s that I found to show you what the cemetery used to look like and what San Diego used to look like in the 1800s.
This is a picture of my 3 times great-grandmother, Gertrude Alto. She is approximately 122 years old in this photograph. She was a Kumeyaay Indian of the San Pasqual Mission Indians. You see my 3 times great-grandmother, Gertrude Alto. She was a resident here in Old Town San Diego. She was born about 1784 to 1789. We are not certain on the date due to there's no birth records. She was born in Vallecito Springs, and she was a resident here for most of her life. And she did die here in Old Town San Diego. But as you can see, that they do have this information about her because she was the oldest citizen in Old Town San Diego. She lived to be about 122 to 125. Again, we are not certain. We do know that she did die in 1914 on September 18th. We are here because this is actually some more of the history of my 3rd times great-grandmother, and she was in India, and so we are here to read a little bit more about it. Well, this is actually, if I believe, from a book that was called Ramona's Wedding Place. And this is where, from what I understand, that Gertrude used to come here and she would greet guests. She wanted to be in the social activity of it all. And I guess people really just loved to sit down with her and visit with her. And it's very nostalgic to be here, knowing that she was around here, walked through these places, saw this. I'm sure it looked a little bit different. But yeah, it's kind of quite endearing to be here.
Now, didn't she have her portrait painted here?
That's from what I understand. Yes, she did.
And how old was she at that point?
From what I read, she was 122.
So I just wanted to throw some historical facts in here to kind of show you the length of time that this woman lived. Like Cheryl said, she was born around 1789, 1784, somewhere in there, but lived to 1914. So if you think about it, she was born about the time when George Washington became president. She was also born when we got our first Constitution here in the United States. Obviously, this was Alta, California at the time, Spain, so they had no idea who George Washington was or the United States. But this woman also lived War of 1812, the Civil War, the Mexican-American War, and she died at the beginning of World War I. So she's seen a lot of fighting and a lot of change in her life. She saw it go from Alta California, that the Spaniards owned, over to the Mexicans owning it, and then the United States coming in and taking it from Mexico in 1850 when California became a state. And she lived through all of this history, and it's amazing history to think of her life and what she saw. The following story came from a newspaper
So I'm standing
article
here in the plaza
and
of
cannot
Old
be
Town San Diego,
verified.
and I came across an article and found out that my 4 times great-grandfather, Trelacadores, was actually burned at the stake here in Old Town San Diego for treason and later found innocent. So we're here at the Calvary Cemetery, also known as Pioneer Park, and Robert just did a sweep of the names of all of the people that are still buried in this park. The last burial in the Calvary Cemetery was in the 1960s, and at that point it was about 10 years that there were no other burials, and it was owned by the city, so the city at that point then decided to make this into a park. Through the research we found out that the city kept about 100 headstones, and they moved the other approximately around 3,000 headstones, and they just dumped them into a ravine. We will show you some of the headstones that they did keep, and they did have it as a memorial. But again, when you're here, you are basically playing on a cemetery, since no one was actually dug up and buried somewhere else. And I don't think a lot of people here in San Diego probably realize that. And talking to some other people that have descendants buried here, I have to say I'm pretty upset with the city for doing this. I don't think it was right. From what I understand, it is that the cemetery, it wasn't kept. There were a lot of weeds. There was a lot of graffiti. So in that aspect, I do understand. But again, I just feel that it was not right for the city to do what they did. So Gertrude is buried here, along with my second great-grandmother, Modesta, and also most of Gertrude's children are buried here, along with some grandchildren are buried here as well.
So we didn't make our way to the San Diego mission, which was the first mission in the 21 missions of California, unfortunately. But Gertrude was baptized in the San Diego mission, not the current chapel that's there now. There's 5 chapels on the property over the last 200 years. But she was baptized there, and we did find out she was baptized by Father Perry. He was the one who started or founded Mission San Luis, just up the coast on Oceanside. So we're thinking she was baptized somewhere around 1798, somewhere in there, but we're not 100% sure. A lot of the records have been destroyed. If not destroyed, they were sent back to Spain, to the mother country. We just don't have the records to prove that as of right now. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of California Unearthed, and a little bit of a peek into San Diego history, Old Town San Diego, and a little peek into Cheryl's family history with Gertrude Alto, or her maiden name, Duro. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode, and let's go off to another adventure and join me once again. So as a tribute to Hulhauser and the great work that he did, even though the Spaniards did not find gold here in California, that wasn't founded until 1849, Old Town San Diego is truly a fine piece of California's gold.
So we're standing here in the middle of the plaza of Old Town San Diego, and I was reading an article and found that my 4 times great grandfather, who was the father of Gertrude, his name was Turlaka Dura. I've seen it spelled Dura, Duras, so I'm not really sure, but I'm thinking it's Dura. Anyway, from what we have read, he was actually burned at the stake. So we found out that Gertrude was also baptized at the San Diego Mission, and it was by Father Peyri, and Father Peyri was the one who, oh shit, what's the name of it? So Father San Lauré started, oh shit, yeah, I think you're gonna. So I was thinking maybe Steven Spielberg got his idea from Poltergeist here, and I'm stepping on dead people.